They tried to take my bunker. During the zombie apocalypse, by the 9th day, they had already voted me out of my own bunker. I wasn't there for the vote. That was the funny part. I watched it happen from a grainy camera feed while eating hot stew at a table none of them knew existed. There were 7 of them in Shelter 2 by then. 7 people I had pulled off roads, out of houses, or away from things that used to be their neighbors. I'd given them beds, water, medical supplies, a locked steel door between them and a world that had gone insane. On the screen, a man named Marcus stood at the head of my folding table with both palms pressed against it like he was chairing a board meeting. "We need rules," he said. Tanya nodded. "Rules everybody follows." Everybody. I leaned back in my chair. Marcus continued. "No one person should control the food. No one person should control access. And if Daniel comes back, we need to make that clear." Daniel was me. I had rescued Marcus 4 days earlier. He had been trapped on the roof of a pharmacy with 12 infected circling the building. He had been down to half a bottle of water. Apparently 4 days was enough time to develop constitutional principles regarding my property. On another camera, I watched 23-year-old Caleb stay quiet. He sat near the back wall with his arms folded, saying nothing. Good. People reveal themselves fastest when they think the person with power isn't listening. Marcus pointed toward the storage room door. "We inventory everything tonight." Tanya asked, "What if he has another key?" "He probably does." "And if he refuses?" Marcus paused. Then he said the sentence I'd been waiting for. "Then he doesn't come back inside." I smiled, not because I was angry, because Shelter 2 had just done exactly what I built it to do. The camera feed flickered. Outside, something slammed into their perimeter fence. Everyone jumped. I took another spoonful of stew. There were 3 things those people didn't know. The food they were planning to divide would last 17 days at their current consumption. The well they thought supplied unlimited water was actually a buried tank with a finite reserve. And the bunker they had just taken from me wasn't my bunker. It was the one I was willing to lose. I closed the camera feed and opened the map on the screen beside it. 3 red dots were moving toward Shelter 2. Not infected. People. Armed people. I looked at the clock. 9:42 p.m. Marcus wanted to be in charge. He was about to get his first shift. 3 months before the world ended, my sister called me paranoid. She wasn't insulting me. At least, I don't think she was. We were sitting on her back patio drinking coffee while she complained about the amount of money I had spent reinforcing a property she had never seen. "You have food for how long?" she asked. "Depends." "On what? How many people are eating it?" She rolled her eyes. "Normal answer, Daniel." "For me, about 2 years." She stared at me. 2 years? Longer if I supplement it. "With what?" "Things that grow." She laughed. I didn't. That was usually where conversations about preparedness ended. People wanted to hear that you had a flashlight, a case of bottled water, and maybe enough canned food to survive a hurricane weekend. Anything beyond that made them uncomfortable. The truth was, I had been preparing for 12 years. Not specifically for zombies. Nobody prepares specifically for zombies unless they're trying to get views online. I prepared for things that actually happened. Hurricanes, civil disorder, supply chain failures, long power outages, financial crashes, pandemics, communications failures. I worked in infrastructure long enough to understand something most people never think about. Civilization is dependable right up until several dependable systems fail at the same time. Electricity fails. Cell sites lose backup power. Payment systems stop. Fuel can't be pumped. Water pressure drops. Supermarkets empty. Police stop answering every call because there are more calls than police. None of those things individually end society. Stack enough of them together and people become very different creatures. So I prepared. But I also studied preparedness communities, survival stories, and historical disasters. And I noticed the same mistake over and over. People protected their supplies from strangers. They almost never protected them from the people they rescued. That interested me. A man spends 10 years storing food, building a shelter and learning skills. Disaster comes. His cousin arrives with his wife, 3 children, and a friend. Then the cousin wants a vote. Someone else wants to invite another family. Someone doesn't like rationing. Someone thinks the owner is controlling. Eventually, the person who sacrificed for 10 years is being told that fairness requires him to surrender control of the thing he built. I decided very early that wouldn't happen to me, so I built Shelter 1. Then I built Shelter 2. And then I made sure anybody who accidentally learned that I had a bunker learned about the wrong one. Shelter 2 was convincing. That mattered. It sat beneath an old workshop on a rural property about 40 minutes from the city. The workshop looked neglected from the road. Rusted roof, old equipment, weeds, nothing worth stealing. Underneath it was a reinforced concrete shelter, 6 bunks, small kitchen, bathroom, water tank, solar batteries, generator, medical cabinet, radio, food storage, enough to impress almost anyone, enough to make them believe they'd found the jackpot. It was also expendable. The real preparation was elsewhere. I never told my sister where. I never told my closest friend. I never wrote the coordinates on my phone. If something happened to me, there was a procedure for 2 people I cared about to eventually find what they needed. But nobody could put a gun against my head and demand directions I had casually handed around during better times. Paranoid? Maybe. Then, on a Tuesday morning in October, people started attacking each other in the emergency department of St. Matthew's Hospital. By Wednesday, nobody was laughing about preparedness. The first message reached my phone at 6:18 a.m. Public Health Advisory. I was making coffee. The notification said there had been an outbreak of violent behavior associated with an unidentified neurological illness. Citizens were advised to avoid contact with symptomatic individuals and await further instructions. Violent behavior. That phrase did a lot of work. I turned on the television. Every channel had the same helicopter footage of police vehicles outside St. Matthew's. Then my work phone rang. It was Adrian. "You seeing this?" "I'm watching. We've got sites dropping." "Power?" "Some. Others are just unreachable." I put the phone on speaker and started moving. Laptop into bag, chargers, 2 power banks, radio, water. I had a departure checklist taped inside a kitchen cabinet. I'd practiced it enough that I didn't need the list, but checklists aren't for when you're calm. They're for when you're not. Adrian kept talking. Management wants everyone available. Remote? For now. That told me more than the television did. If companies were already telling technical staff not to report physically, someone knew the situation was worse than the public message. I opened a camera app. Shelter 2. Clear. Secondary property. Clear. Several other feeds. Clear. I didn't open the final group. Those required a different device. At 6:31, my sister called. "Daniel?" Her voice was different. "Where are you?" "Home. They're saying stay inside." "Good. Lock everything. Fill the bathtub." "The bathtub?" "Do it while the water works." Silence. Then, "You're scaring me." "I'm trying to keep you ahead." She had a husband and 2 children. They lived 20 minutes away. I had planned for them. Of course I had. But even they weren't getting the real location over a phone call. "Get the bags I gave you." "The emergency ones?" "Yes." "Are we coming to you?" "Not yet." She hated that answer. "Daniel, listen to me. You have food, water, doors. Stay home while the roads are still full of people doing stupid things." A crash came through the television speakers. The helicopter camera had zoomed toward the hospital entrance. A police officer was backing away from a woman in a torn hospital gown. She charged him. He hit her with a baton. She went down, then got back up. The news anchor stopped talking. The officer backed away again. The woman launched herself at him. The camera cut away. My sister whispered, "What the hell was that?" I didn't answer, because another alert appeared. Shelter in place. Then another. Emergency services are experiencing extreme call volume. Then Adrian, still connected on the other phone, said, "Dan, we're losing the North Ring." I looked through my window. Cars were already moving faster than normal. A neighbor was loading suitcases into an SUV. Somebody shouted from 2 houses down. My coffee sat untouched on the counter. This wasn't the moment the world ended. It was the moment everybody realized the old world might not be coming back tomorrow. I picked up my bag. Protocol had started. People imagine that if you have a bunker, the first thing you do during a disaster is run to it. That's how you get followed. My first destination was a storage unit. Not mine. At least not under my name. I drove an old pickup instead of my usual vehicle and took a route that made no sense if someone tried to reconstruct where I was going. Traffic was building. Gas stations had lines. One supermarket parking lot was already full. At an intersection, a man ran between cars covered in blood. Nobody knew whether to help him. That uncertainty lasted maybe 5 seconds. Then he threw himself onto the hood of a sedan and started smashing his forehead against the windshield. People abandoned their cars. I drove over the median. That was the first infected person I saw with my own eyes. I stopped calling them sick after that. At the storage unit, I changed vehicles. The second vehicle had already been loaded. Food wasn't the priority. I had food. I wanted tools, fuel, communications equipment, spare electronics, clothing, and several sealed containers I wasn't willing to leave behind. My phone buzzed constantly. Family, work, friends, people who hadn't spoken to me in months. One message stood out. "Bro, you still got that bunker thing?" I stared at it. There it was. The outbreak wasn't 6 hours old, and somebody remembered. I typed, "What bunker?" 3 dots appeared. LOL, come on man. That place by the old workshop. I didn't reply. Shelter 2 had just earned its construction cost. By noon, emergency broadcasts were telling people not to travel. By 1, everyone was traveling. By 2, several roads were blocked. By 3, the mobile network was degrading badly. I made one trip toward my sister's neighborhood. I never reached it. A bus had crashed across the main road. Behind it, dozens of people were running. Some away from something. Some after them. I reversed. My sister called seconds later. "We left." My stomach tightened. "I told you to stay." Michael's brother came. He said the highway south was still open. "Where are you?" "In the car." "Turn around." "We can't. Traffic's one way." I forced myself not to shout. This is why plans fail. Not because the plan is bad, because people improvise. "Send me your location." She did. They were heading away from the worst part of the city, which was good. They were also heading toward thousands of other people, which wasn't. Listen, don't go to any government shelter unless you have no alternative. Keep the doors locked. Don't stop for anyone acting injured in the road. "Daniel! You've seen the news." A long pause. "Where are you?" "Moving." "To the bunker?" I looked in the mirror. A black sedan had been behind me for 3 turns. "Eventually." "Which one?" I almost smiled. Even my sister didn't know. "Call me every 30 minutes." I took the next left. The sedan continued straight. Only then did I breathe normally again. I didn't reach a bunker that day. I slept for 3 hours in a concealed room beneath a commercial building I had access to. It wasn't comfortable. That was intentional. Comfort makes you stay places you shouldn't. At 2:11 the next morning, screaming woke me. Not outside, on the radio. A dispatcher was trying to reach a police unit that no longer existed. Then another voice broke across the channel. If anyone can hear this, don't let them bite you. Static. They're not. More static. Then screaming. I turned the radio off. There are moments when information stops helping. I checked my sister's last message. Safe for now. Then I checked Shelter 2. Still empty. Good. By sunrise, I had decided to keep it that way as long as possible. That decision lasted 6 hours. Her name was Elena. I found her behind a hardware store holding a tire iron with both hands. There were 2 bodies near her. One had been infected. The other hadn't. I didn't ask about the second one immediately. She saw my truck and stepped backward. Stay there. I wasn't coming closer. Are you alone? At the moment. Wrong question to answer honestly. She was maybe 35. Work boots, jeans, blood on one sleeve that didn't appear to be hers. Bitten? No. Show me. She glared at me. Then good luck. I started walking back toward the truck. Wait. I stopped. People imagine survival conversations involve compassion and speeches. Mostly, they involve leverage. She rolled up both sleeves, turned around, lifted the back of her shirt enough to show there were no wounds. Legs? You serious? Completely. She checked herself. Clean. Who is he? I pointed toward the second body. Her expression changed. My manager. Infected? No. What happened? He tried to take my keys. Good answer, not morally good. Useful. What keys? She lifted them. Delivery van. I looked around the corner. A commercial van sat behind the building. What happened to him? He said we should go together. Then when I said my daughter was across town, he told me I wasn't taking the van. And? He grabbed me. She looked at the body. I hit him. Once was apparently enough. I respected efficiency. Where's your daughter? Her eyes hardened. Why? Because if she's across town, you're not reaching her alone. You offering? No. She almost laughed. Then what are we doing? Determining whether helping you creates a larger problem for me. She stared. You're an asshole. Probably. A scream came from the road. We both looked. 3 infected were moving between abandoned cars. Fast. Decision time, I said. She grabbed a backpack. We left in my truck. I didn't take her to Shelter 2. Not yet. We drove toward her daughter's last known location. It took 4 hours. We found the apartment. We found the broken door. We found blood. We didn't find her daughter. Elena wanted to search every building nearby. I let her search 3. Then I stopped her. We leave before dark. I'm not leaving. Then you stay.
You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You want me to risk both our lives because stopping feels like abandoning her. Her face tightened. I am not telling you to stop looking forever. I'm telling you darkness changes the odds. You have somewhere safe. It wasn't a question. I said nothing. I knew it. Knowing I'm not sleeping in a ditch doesn't tell you where. You've got a shelter. Maybe. She stepped closer. If you have somewhere safe, we can come back tomorrow. There it was. We. Not entitlement. Not yet. But language matters. I looked at the sky. Get in. Shelter 2 received its first guest at 7:46 that evening. I parked half a mile away. We approached on foot. I made her wear blackout goggles for the last portion. She cursed me for 10 minutes. I didn't care. When I finally removed them inside the workshop, she looked around. You kidnapped me to a shed. Then I opened the concealed door. Her expression changed. The stairs descended beneath us. Lights came on automatically. Steel door, concrete, bunks, kitchen, food, water. She turned slowly. Oh my God. I watched her face carefully. Awe, relief. Then something else. Calculation. Everybody calculates. Good people calculate. Bad people calculate. The difference is what they decide they're entitled to afterward. Is this yours? Yes. How long can we stay? I looked at her. We. She caught herself. I mean, you can stay tonight. Her jaw tightened. And tomorrow? Tomorrow we look for your daughter. That answer satisfied her. For now. I showed her the bathroom, one bunk, and the emergency exit. I did not show her the cameras. I did not show her the maintenance hatch. I did not show her the transmitter. And I definitely did not tell her that after she fell asleep, I was leaving. At 1:20 a.m., I placed a note on the table. Food is rationed. Water is rationed. Do not open the outer door for anyone. Below it, I will return. I left through an exit she didn't know existed. 2 hours later, I was somewhere else entirely. Somewhere with thicker walls, more food, and no guests. Elena passed the first test. When I returned the following afternoon, nothing had been disturbed. At least, nothing obvious. The storage cabinet remained locked. The food inventory matched. She had eaten exactly what I'd left. More importantly, she had not tried to follow my exit route. We searched for her daughter again. On the third day, we found her. Sophia was 14 and alive. She had been hiding with an elderly couple in a church office. Elena cried. I didn't interrupt. Sophia became the second resident of Shelter 2. I made the rules clear. No one leaves without telling me. No one brings anyone back. No one opens secured storage. No one touches communications equipment. Food and water are rationed. My absence does not change the rules. Elena asked the obvious question. Where do you go? Outside. She looked annoyed. That's not an answer. It's the one you're getting. Sophia laughed. I liked her immediately. Over the next 2 days, I brought 3 more people. Caleb came first. 23. Quiet. Mechanically inclined. I found him trying to repair a motorcycle behind a collapsed fence. He didn't ask where I lived. He asked whether I needed help maintaining the generator. Useful question. Then came Mr. Harris, 68, retired electrician. He had enough medication for several weeks and carried his own food. Even better. Then Tanya. Tanya was 31, intelligent, organized, and extremely persuasive. I knew she would become a problem within 20 minutes. Not because she was evil, because she reorganized things that weren't hers. I came back from a supply run and found labels on my shelves. Medical, daily food, long-term, tools. You moved things. I organized them. They were organized. She smiled. Not really. I removed every label while she watched. Don't do that again. Her smile disappeared. It's just labels. It's my property. We're all using it. No, you're being allowed to use it. Silence. Caleb looked down. Elena watched both of us. Tanya folded her arms. There's a difference? A very important one. That conversation made me unpopular for approximately 6 hours. I could live with that. The next morning, everyone had breakfast, because unpopular people can still own oatmeal. On day 5, we found Marcus. That was when the experiment really began. Marcus looked like the kind of man people listened to. 42. Broad shoulders, calm voice, former regional sales manager, which meant he had spent 20 years learning how to make demands sound reasonable. He was trapped on the pharmacy roof. I almost left him. Not because of anything he'd done, because rescuing him required exposing myself. Then I saw two infected forcing their way through the rear entrance. I made the calculation. One human life against manageable risk. I pulled the truck alongside the building. Marcus jumped. We drove. He thanked me 12 times. Then he asked where we were going. Safe place. Yours? Safe place. He smiled. You, military? No. Police? No. What do you do? Fix problems. That answer amused him. At Shelter 2, I repeated the rules. Marcus listened attentively. Then he shook my hand. Your house. Your rules. I remember the exact words. Your house. Your rules. It took him 72 hours to change his mind. First, he suggested increasing portions. I refused. Then, he suggested rotating control of the keys. I refused. Then he wanted everyone to know the complete inventory. I refused. Each request sounded reasonable by itself. That's how boundaries disappear. Nobody walks into your house and says, I'd like to gradually take control of your property. They say, wouldn't it be safer if we all had keys? Shouldn't everyone know where everything is? What if something happens to you? Why don't we vote? Every question transfers a little authority. Marcus was very good at questions. On day 7, I returned to find a meeting underway. It stopped when I entered. That's another useful thing to notice. What are we discussing? Tanya answered. Security? Go ahead. Marcus cleared his throat. We think there should always be 2 people involved when the door is opened. Reasonable. He looked slightly surprised. And 2 people should know the door codes. No. Daniel, no. What if you're killed? Then you use the emergency exit. And abandon all this? If necessary. Marcus leaned back. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't need to make sense to you. Tanya jumped in. We're depending on this place now. That's the problem. Silence. Elena looked at me. What does that mean? It means you've been here less than a week, and some of you already think survival requires access to things I haven't offered. Marcus sighed. We're trying to build a community. No, you're trying to survive an outbreak. What's the difference? A community is voluntary. I looked around the table. This is a shelter I own. You're free to leave. You're not free to redefine the arrangement. Marcus smiled, not warmly. You really don't trust people. I trust people to behave like people. That night, I left. I didn't tell them how long I'd be gone. Then I watched. For the first 4 hours, nothing happened. At 11:13 p.m., Marcus tried the storage room door. At 11:15, Tanya joined him. At 11:19, they searched the kitchen drawers. At 11:27, Marcus stood on a chair and inspected the ceiling. Caleb watched. He didn't participate. Elena confronted them. What are you doing? Looking. For what? Information. It's his place. Marcus turned toward her. And he's hiding things. Obviously. That came from Sophia. Everybody looked at the 14-year-old. She shrugged. If I had this place, I'd hide stuff from you too. I nearly laughed aloud. Marcus didn't. What happens when the food runs out? He asked. Elena pointed at the shelves. There's plenty. How much? Nobody knew, because I had intentionally made it difficult to calculate. Marcus looked around. Exactly. He had finally asked the right question. What happens when the food runs out? I knew. They didn't. That was the point. On day 9, I deliberately stayed away. I wanted to know what authority looked like when they believed I couldn't enforce mine. Marcus called the meeting at 7:30 p.m. All 7 residents attended: Elena, Sophia, Caleb, Mr. Harris, Tanya, Marcus, and a woman named Grace, whom Elena had found the previous day. I had allowed Grace inside after checking her for bites. That made 7. 7 was already too many. Marcus began with food. "We need an inventory," Elena objected. Daniel said not to enter the locked room. "We don't need his permission to count what we're relying on." Sophia muttered, "Pretty sure you need his permission to break his lock." Tanya ignored her. "We also need a leadership structure." Caleb finally spoke. "Why?" "Because Daniel disappears. He comes back. Until he doesn't." Marcus nodded. "Exactly." Then he gave the speech. It was good. I'll give him that. He talked about shared responsibility, safety, transparency, democratic decision-making, all excellent concepts in a country. Less compelling when 7 people have moved into someone else's basement 9 days after civilization collapsed. Then Tanya proposed a vote, 3 decisions. First, supplies would be considered communal. Second, access codes and keys would be shared among at least 3 adults. Third, Daniel would no longer have unilateral authority over who entered the shelter. I watched from 40 miles away. Mr. Harris voted no. Caleb voted no. Sophia wasn't allowed to vote, which irritated her tremendously. Elena abstained. Grace voted yes. Tanya voted yes. Marcus voted yes. 3 yes. 2 no. 1 abstention. Marcus leaned back. Motion passes. I stared at the screen. Based on what arithmetic? Mr. Harris apparently had the same question. 3 isn't a majority of 6. Elena abstained. That doesn't turn 3 into 4. Marcus frowned. Tanya jumped in. The majority of votes cast were yes. Sophia looked directly toward the hidden camera without knowing it was there. Her expression said everything. I saved the clip. Maybe one day we'd laugh about it. Then Marcus made his mistake. If Daniel refuses to cooperate, we don't let him back in until he understands this isn't just his anymore. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Elena stood. Absolutely not. We need unity. He saved every person in this room. And that means he owns us? No. It means you don't steal his bunker. Marcus raised his hands. Nobody said steal. You literally just voted to take control of it. It's bigger than ownership now. There it was. The sentence underneath almost every confiscation in human history. It's bigger than ownership now. I shut off the audio. I had heard enough. On another monitor, motion sensors had triggered along the northern approach. 3 humans. 1 carried a rifle. Another carried a backpack. The third was checking buildings. They were moving systematically. Not refugees. Scavengers. Possibly worse. I could have warned Shelter 2 immediately. Instead, I watched for another minute. Marcus had wanted authority. Authority isn't getting the biggest food portion or holding the keys. Authority is being awake at midnight because someone has to decide whether the sound outside is rain or footsteps. I activated 1 external sensor. Inside Shelter 2, an alarm chirped. Everybody froze. Marcus looked toward the door. Caleb stood. What was that? Mr. Harris answered. Perimeter. Marcus looked around. Suddenly, everyone was waiting for him. I turned the audio back on. Nobody suggested a vote. The 3 strangers stopped at the workshop. 1 tried the door. Marcus watched through the small external camera monitor I'd allowed them to know about. They're people, Grace whispered. Tanya said, maybe they need help. I actually said, of course, allowed to an empty room. Marcus looked uncertain. The man outside knocked. Hello? No response. We know somebody's inside. That changed the room. Caleb looked at Marcus. How? The stranger knocked again. We don't want trouble. We need somewhere to stay, Tanya whispered. We can't leave them out there. Sophia immediately said, Yes, we can. Smart kid. The stranger outside stepped away. His companion moved toward the side of the workshop. They weren't waiting for permission. They were mapping entrances. Marcus finally made a good decision. Nobody opens anything. The rifleman disappeared from camera. 30 seconds later, the power went out. Everyone panicked. Not because Shelter 2 had lost power, because I had remotely disabled the workshop lighting. The bunker remained on batteries. The strangers didn't know that. Caleb moved toward the electrical panel. Mr. Harris stopped him. Leave it. Good. The exterior camera switched to infrared. One stranger was kneeling beside the generator housing. Another stood watch. The third was at the rear door. Marcus whispered, They planned this. Yes. Finally. The rifleman shouted, We can do this easy or hard. Nobody answered. We just need food. Tanya looked toward the shelves. We could give them something. Sophia stared at her. Then they'll know we have food. They already know someone is here. They don't know what we have. I wondered whether Sophia would eventually become more dangerous than me. I hoped so. The rear door rattled, then stopped. 5 minutes passed. 10. The strangers withdrew. Marcus exhaled. They're leaving. No, they weren't. I could see them moving into the tree line. Caleb said the same thing. They're waiting. Marcus looked at him. For what? For someone to open the door. Correct? I waited another 20 minutes, then sent a single encrypted message to the shelter terminal. Do not exit. They are still outside. Marcus read it. His face changed. He can see us. Tanya looked around. From where? That was the first time fear of the strangers became fear of me. Good. Not because I wanted them frightened, because uncertainty was protecting my actual location. Marcus typed into the terminal. Where are you? I didn't answer. He tried again. How many are there? I replied. 3. Armed? Yes. Are you coming? I considered the question, then typed, no. Marcus stared at the word. Tanya looked furious. He left us. Caleb shook his head. No, he warned us. He should be here. Why? Because this is his bunker. Sophia laughed. The timing was magnificent. Everyone turned toward her. What? Tanya snapped. Sophia wiped the smile from her face. Nothing. But it wasn't nothing. Tanya had just spent an evening arguing that the bunker belonged to everyone. The moment danger arrived, ownership reverted to me. Responsibility is funny like that. People collectivize benefits very quickly. Risk remains surprisingly private. The armed group left before dawn. Actually left. I confirmed it through 2 cameras and a sensor farther down the road. I returned to Shelter 2 at 10:15 a.m. Marcus met me at the inner door. He looked exhausted. Where were you? Busy. You could have helped. I did. You watched. And told you how many there were. They could have broken in. They didn't. That's not the point. I walked past him. Nobody stopped me. Interesting, considering I had supposedly been voted out. Tanya stood near the kitchen. You knew they were coming. I detected them. Why didn't you come back? Because adding another person outside with a vehicle would have increased the chance of revealing the entrance. Marcus shook his head. You left us to deal with it. Yes. His face hardened. Then why should you be in charge? There are questions people ask because they want answers. That wasn't one. So I didn't answer it. I walked to the pantry shelves. Who increased the food portions? Silence. I picked up an empty package. This should have lasted another 4 days. Tanya folded her arms. People were hungry. People will become much hungrier. Marcus stepped forward. This is exactly why we need an inventory. Agreed. That surprised him. I opened a cabinet, then another. Then I unlocked the storage room. Everyone moved closer. I stepped aside. The room wasn't full. It contained considerably less food than they expected. Marcus stared. That's it? That's what? The food. Yes. Tanya looked at me. You said this place was stocked. It is. For how long? At the ration schedule I established, 23 days from when Elena arrived. Everyone went quiet. We've used 6. I nodded. So, 17 days, Caleb said. Approximately. Grace looked frightened. What happens after 17 days? You find more food. Marcus stared at me. You have more. I didn't answer. You absolutely have more. Probably. Where? I smiled slightly. Wrong question. Somewhere. Tanya stepped toward me. You brought 7 people here knowing there were only a few weeks of supplies? I brought 7 adults capable of contributing to their survival. Sophia isn't an adult, Elena said, which is why her food allocation was accounted for separately. Elena didn't argue. Marcus did. This is insane. No, this is a lifeboat. I pointed around the room. You thought it was a cruise ship. Mr. Harris chuckled. Marcus ignored him. You have another bunker. Silence. There are moments when lying creates more information than telling the truth. I looked directly at Marcus. No. He studied my face. I let him. Then I added, I have resources. Not the same thing. Where? Places. We need access. No. We? No. His jaw tightened. You expect us to go outside while you're sitting on supplies? I expect every capable person here to contribute. Tanya said, you could feed everyone. Maybe. Then why wouldn't you? Because I don't know how long this lasts. That was the truth. And because the moment you know everything I have and where it is, my survival depends on every person in this room remaining reasonable forever. Nobody responded. I looked at Marcus. You've known me 4 days and already voted to take control of this shelter. His face changed. So did Tanya's. Elena looked at them. You knew? Marcus asked. I know everything that happens in here that matters. It was an exaggeration. Useful one. Marcus looked toward the ceiling. You're spying on us. I'm monitoring my property. This is our living space. Then leave. Silence. Again. That was the problem with people who accused me of controlling them. The door was never locked from the inside. They were free. They just preferred my bunker to freedom. I placed a paper map on the table. Tomorrow we start organized supply runs. Caleb came closer. Where? Small places first, houses, warehouses, rural stores, places less obvious than supermarkets. Marcus didn't move. And if we refuse? Then you have 16 days. I walked toward the exit. Behind me, Sophia asked, Where are you going? I looked back. Home. Marcus's eyes narrowed. That one word had been a mistake. Maybe. Or maybe I wanted him thinking about it. I left Shelter 2 at 1:05 p.m. I drove north, then east. then doubled back. At 2:14, a small indicator on my dashboard turned red. I sighed. Someone had put a tracker on the truck. Not sophisticated. Bluetooth. Probably scavenged from someone's luggage. I kept driving. I didn't stop. I took the truck 20 miles away and parked outside an abandoned farm. Then I searched it. The tracker was underneath the rear bumper. I photographed it. I didn't remove it. Instead, I drove another 6 miles to a derelict house I'd previously checked. I parked the truck in the garage. Then I left, through the back, on foot. A concealed bicycle was waiting in a drainage culvert half a mile away. Preparedness isn't owning things. It's having options. 3 hours later, I was inside the place Marcus wanted to find. I won't describe the approach. Not yet. I won't describe the entrance either. Some secrets should remain secrets, even from the audience. But I'll tell you what happened when I arrived. I removed my outer clothing in a small transition room, checked myself for blood, checked again for scratches, washed, changed, then entered. Warm lights, quiet ventilation, rows of supplies, a real kitchen, workshop, medical room, communication station, water monitoring, power systems, storage that made Shelter 2 look like a weekend camping trip. I checked the status board. Power, normal. Water, normal. Air, normal. Perimeter, clear. Then I opened the Shelter 2 feeds. Marcus wasn't there. Neither was Tanya. Caleb sat with Mr. Harris. Elena was reading. Sophia was drawing something. I switched cameras. Workshop, empty. Exterior, nothing. Then the motion sensor near the road triggered. 2 people walking. Marcus and Tanya. They were following the route my truck had taken. I leaned back. So that was the plan. Tracker on the vehicle. Wait until I leave. Follow later. Smart enough to be dangerous. Not smart enough. Yet. I opened another camera. The abandoned farmhouse appeared. My truck sat exactly where I'd left it. Marcus and Tanya arrived 28 minutes later. They searched the property. They found the truck. Then the house. Then the empty rooms. Marcus looked furious. Tanya sat on the porch. Even without audio, I could imagine the conversation. Where did he go? How? There has to be something here. Marcus eventually walked to the truck. He reached beneath the bumper, removed the tracker, looked at it, then looked directly toward the farmhouse, not toward the camera. Almost. He understood. I'd found it. I'd played along. And now he knew something much more important than my location. He knew I knew he was looking. Marcus smiled. I didn't. Because I had made a mistake about him. I thought he wanted my supplies. Watching him stand beside that truck, I realized supplies were only part of it. Marcus couldn't tolerate a system he didn't control. The bunker wasn't the prize. Control was. That made him more dangerous. I saved the recording. Then a different alarm sounded. Not Shelter 2. Not the farmhouse. My perimeter. The real one. I froze. One sensor, then a second. Something was moving outside. I switched to thermal. One heat signature. Human-sized. Moving slowly. It stopped. I waited. The figure stood beyond the outer perimeter for nearly a minute, then raised one arm. It wasn't attacking. It was waving. At the camera. My stomach tightened. Nobody knew that camera existed. The figure lowered its arm, then held up a piece of cardboard. 3 words were written across it. I know you're there. I stared at the screen. For the first time since the outbreak began, I didn't have a plan. Then the person outside turned the cardboard over. There was another message. Marcus isn't your problem. The figure dropped the sign, turned, and disappeared into the trees. I replayed the footage twice, then 3 times. No recognizable face. No obvious weapon, no vehicle, nothing. 40 miles away, Marcus was still searching an empty farmhouse. The people in Shelter 2 were worried about 17 days of food. And somebody I had never seen before had just walked to the edge of the one place nobody was supposed to know existed. I locked every internal door, shut down non-essential lighting, activated systems I had hoped never to use. Then I sat in the communications room and watched the trees. People think the worst thing that can happen in an apocalypse is running out of food. They're wrong. Food can be replaced. Shelters can be abandoned. Equipment can be rebuilt. The most valuable thing I owned was information. And someone had just stolen mine. That was the moment I stopped worrying about whether Marcus would find the real bunker. Because someone else already had. I didn't sleep that night. At 4:03 a.m., a message arrived on an emergency radio frequency I had monitored for years. No voice, digital text. Daniel. Just my name. Then, you built a good decoy. I stared at the receiver. A third message followed. But you built it for the wrong enemy. I reached for the keyboard. For the first time, I considered replying. Then another line appeared. Do not bring them here. I stopped. Outside, the cameras showed nothing. Inside Shelter 2, 7 people slept beneath a workshop, believing their biggest problem was food. Marcus believed he was hunting me. And somewhere in the dark was a person who knew my name, knew about Shelter 2, and knew where I actually lived. I deleted the reply I'd started typing. Then I wrote one sentence on the whiteboard above my desk. It was a rule I should never have needed to remind myself of. Trust is a resource. Underneath it, I added, spend it slowly. The radio chirped once more. Final message. Tomorrow, 1800. Come alone. Coordinates followed. I recognized the location. An old communications relay station, high ground, multiple approaches. Plenty of places for someone to watch me coming. It could be a trap. Probably was. I saved the coordinates anyway. Because survival isn't about avoiding every risk. It's about choosing which risks are worth understanding. And whoever had found my bunker knew something I didn't. That made them dangerous. It also made them useful. I looked once more at the camera feed from Shelter 2. Marcus and Tanya had returned. They were whispering at the table, planning, still trying to find me. I almost felt sorry for them. They thought they were playing the important game. They had no idea another one had already started.